Moretti, Underground, The Liberty Report.
Well, hello, America. Welcome to Moretti Underground, The Liberty Report. Today's Monday, June 29th, 2015. I don't know, it's 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and we're live. We're reporting from the studios of PRN Radio Network. That's the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program. Hey, Watchmen. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here with me, and we appreciate you tuning in with us. Our chat rooms at Blog Talk Radio and right here at PRN Radio Network are open for you. A few of our amazing colleagues, Lynn, AstroTurf, and, of course, Famous Anna, are in the chats putting links, articles, sources, documents, and all that other stuff in there, so you have them available to you. And thank you, ladies, for that nice courtesy. Excuse me. Our colleagues are more than people in a chat room, by the way. They're the best researchers, journalists, and analysts I've ever met. Please say hi to each other when you get over there. You may run into a couple of our colleagues there. Today we have so much news to get to, and we're not going to do a lot of reading today. We're going to have a round table, and we're going to discuss some things. I want to try to lay out the whole big picture for everybody. So, like I said, we're not going to do a lot of reading. This show might be a little bit controversial tonight. The things we discuss aren't always the same way the mainstream media presents them, but we do strive to be correct, and we always source our information and provide documents, too. So I just want to let you know that. Before we begin, though, I have to first do a short disclaimer, and that just lets everybody know that whatever's said on this show is my responsibility, and, of course, not that of our gracious hosts or sponsors. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers of the PRN Radio Network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, or anything else of members of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, whether it be past, present, and even future broadcasts. All right, now that that's out of the way, let me open up Scott's microphone here. I'll give him a proper hello, and then we'll get this party started. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Ferrarello. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how you doing, Joanne?
I am doing good, Scott. I'm doing very good. We got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. I don't even know where to begin with all this stuff. But, crap is happening all over the place. And it's all interesting. Some is good, some is bad. But I got to tell you, we are living in some very interesting times, my friend. Anything you want to bring up before we jump right in?
Jump right in.
All right, because we're going to do a lot of talking tonight. We're not going to do a bunch of reading. But I do want to tell everybody that, in this whole mesh of news, in this latest news cycle, there's one thing that people aren't bringing up, and I'm amazed at why they're not bringing it up. Does anybody out there know that the Star of Bethlehem is in the skies right now? It's a celestial event that hasn't happened in over 2,000 years, and it's right over our heads. It's going to culminate on the 30th, which is tomorrow. But if you look out there tonight, you'll see it, and it'll go on until, July 5th. So this is probably the star that the three wise men in the Bible saw. It's amazing that, let's see what it says here. It says, after an absence of roughly 2,000 years, the Star of Bethlehem is making a return to our night skies on June 30th. It says, Venus and Jupiter will be making their tightest, highly visible conjuncture in nearly 2 millennia. So the last one was in 3 or 2 BC. But that tells us a lot. There's a lot more than that going on, too, not just that Star of Bethlehem. But it's also the Shemitah, which is the 7-year cycle. As a matter of fact, 2 cows have been born with the markings of the number 7 on their foreheads. What else is going on, Scott? There's been trumpeting all over the world. The 4 blood moons. Some people say those are the 4 horsemen. So there's some serious times we're living in right now.
You're not hearing any of this stuff because it's all Christian-based. I mean, if it was something to do with Islam, they'd be declaring a new national holiday for it.
Mhm. Yeah. Also, for the last 7 years, there's been strange noises heard all around the world. Some people think it's harps. Some people think it's, like rockets and stuff breaking the sound barrier, things like that. I'm saying, we were told about trumpets. I don't know what's causing it, but sure as heck sounds like trumpets. There's a whole bunch of links in that.
It could be
thing
a lot of things. It could be inner core of the earth, shooting out sound from, all the rumblings and earthquakes, and it's bouncing off the stratosphere.
Yeah, and that would sound like trumpeting.
I prefer to believe it's something biblical, but, whatever it is, I mean, the only way you could explain it back in those days would be to say, well, it sounds like trumpets or something. No one, they didn't know anything about the Earth's core or the stratosphere or anything like that. So they had to put it in the terms that they could understand,
Absolutely, and I agree with you too. Whether it is or whether it isn't trumpets, there's just way too many coincidences going on right now, especially when, the Star of Bethlehem, 4 blood moons in the same cycle, trumpeting. There's just a lot of things that are telling us that this could be biblical. And then when you look at the situation that this country is in, especially, there's a lot of things that are going on that are also biblical in proportion. So we're going to have to get to some of those things today. But I just wanted to bring up that tonight, look in the sky, and you'll see the Star of Bethlehem. And tomorrow night it's supposed to be more vivid. So if you're in a place or, if you're traveling and you're in an airplane, make sure you look, because they think that, this might be what the 3 wise men were following that led them to the baby Jesus. I don't know. It's worth bringing up, according to me.
Yeah, well, I'd be worried about the equivalent satanic version of that coming out of there,
Yeah, I don't know anything about that though, because I never even studied that. But even that guy Jonathan Cahn, the rabbi there, he was talking. He wrote this book called The Harbinger, and he wrote about this, and he specifically mentioned the Shemitah. The Shemitah is the cycle of 7. In 2001, we had a major stock market crash. In 2008, we had a major stock market crash. The whole world's economy was on the verge of collapse. That was 7 years after 2001. Now it's 7 years again. It's 2015. And if you look at our stock markets today, not just ours, but the world stock markets. Last night, I watched as the Hang Seng Asian markets opened up. They were down 700 points. The other one, the Hong Kong market, they were down, I think, 470-something points. And then today, the International Bank of Settlements, who are actually losing their charter at midnight tomorrow night, if the Congress doesn't reestablish the charter, they're out of business. But they put out an article today, and the first words should chill anybody because of who it is that said it. I mean, that's the central bank of all that's the mother of all central banks right there. And it says here, the world is defenseless against the next financial crisis, warns BIS. Monetary policymakers have run out of room to fight the next crisis with interest rates unable to go lower. So that's all you have to hear. I mean, the article goes on, of course, but I'm not even going to bother with it. The first words you heard right there, the world is defenseless against the next financial crisis. Right there, that was the signal. You know how we always talk about they give the green light and the signal, and watch what they say and how they say it and in what context, watch for pauses. Well, that was it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the go-ahead. Now, you know that, Wall Street banks, they admitted rigging the market. As a matter of fact, they had to pay a $9 billion settlement. Nobody went to jail for that, of course. but, I mean, almost every day for 5 years, they used private electronic chat rooms to manipulate the exchange rate between euros and dollars. And they were using coded language to conceal the collusion. So, I mean, that's the one thing that Loretta Lynch did do, was she did take them all to court. And, I mean, it was like Citicorp and Barclays and a whole bunch of them.
That's
JP
because the
Morgan.
wrong people were stealing the money, you see.
What do you
It's sort of like, well, it's like the cops. If one mob bribes the police and the other ones don't, they just shake down the ones that didn't pay them. So, you know, if she went after them, believe me, they're not on her team, or she would have ignored it.
No, well, we found out that Holder was using the billions to give to Democratic nonprofits and to, you know, Black Lives Matter and Acorns and all of those. Some people that the money went to didn't even have anything to do with the banks at all, but they, you know, won out on awards for that. Another thing where the money went was it went to the Victims of Crime organization, and $29 million of that just went to that church in Charleston. I don't know how it was so fast that they even applied for those funds, but Denise and I were looking at those funds, and Boston got $8 million out of that, and it was given to the city of Boston. It wasn't given to the victims. There was a private fund set up for them.
They keep the government narrative going. You know, they stop any investigations to find out how phony it was and how you only got about 1% of the truth out of the whole deal.
Right.
It's payoff money. You know, how many other victims get money, you know?
Yep.
And look at all the victims in Chicago. You think any of those families see a nickel?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, they don't. Rahm Emanuel gets a chunk of change for his initiatives. But the victims' families, in the Charleston case, the victims' families are alleged to have gotten $3.2 million each. And I don't know where the rest of the money went, but
it's a good payoff,
$29 million altogether.
And they tell them, you know, just be real convincing, you know, on TV, doing interviews if you want that $3.2 million to stay in your bank account, or we'll just, you know, hit a button, it'll disappear.
Right. Exactly, yeah. That thing was a whole setup, and I'm going to prove it in a few minutes. Let's talk about Puerto Rico for a second, because this, too, is a setup. Everybody knows Puerto Rico came out and said that they're going to have a moratorium on paying their debts. They don't have the money. It's $72 billion that Puerto Rico is in debt. How the heck does an island the size of Puerto Rico get in debt $72 billion?
Democrats stealing it?
Yeah. Actually, it is a Democrat island. They can't vote for president, but they do have a senator and they do have congressmen. Thinking that because Julian Castro is up for vice president with a Hillary run, and this is his forte along with Gutierrez, I'm thinking that they are going to not only force us into bailing them out, which is not possible unless they're a state, because they're a province. The law says that they cannot get a bailout from the federal government. And most of the debt is to, it says private investors, but we all know that's BS. Now, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get statehood. Right. And this is a way to do it. Now, the people in Puerto Rico, the last time that came up, they voted not to become a state. They didn't want it. Now it's getting forced on them. Right. Well,
yeah, they do that so it keeps up the illusion of choice and whatnot.
Yeah, well, there is no choice. Puerto Rico either goes under or they become a state. There is no other choice there. They'll go under if they don't get a bailout, and they don't get a bailout unless they're a state. And you know that the Democrats, they want all new Democrats, and the Puerto Ricans are definitely Democrats. I mean, look at how far in debt they are. You think Republicans? No, Republicans wouldn't have let it get that far. However, that's neither here nor there. This is all a trap, and it is sponsored by Luis Gutierrez, Julian Castro, and his twin brother. Of course, the Hillary team wants it, Obama wants it, and the whole Democrat DNC wants it because they need those voters. And it fits in with the love for the Latinos. The black people, they're getting booted soon. They're pretty much running their course. But now it's the Latinos again. So, I mean, you can tell that just by what they did to Trump. Anyhow, I'm thinking that this is a scam to make Puerto Rico our 51st state. And you watch. You remember you heard it here first.
Yeah, it will be. They've been, they always give hints about that years before they do it. And so they figure, well, we do what the IMF does. You bankrupt a country, you put them in so much debt and under so much misery that they'll sell their soul to get out of it, or their country, or their sovereignty, and that's basically what it is.
Mhm. Well, that is exactly what's going on. They're selling their sovereignty, and they're going to be absorbed, and they're going to be Democratic voters, and they're going to get a bailout of $72 billion, and it's all going to come off of your wallet.
And guess what? They'll still be in debt. They'll still collapse with the rest of the United States, and they'll lose it all anyway.
Right. And you see what's going on with Greece, by the way? I'm not going to get into the whole Greece financial thing, but I got to tell you something else, too. Putin is in the middle of this. Now, Greece put off their even making a decision until the 5th of July, so they're taking a whole week off. All the banks over there are closed, and the other European banks are not putting money into the Greece banks because they're closed. So this is just in limbo right now, but Putin already made them a deal. Putin's already offering to bail them out. I'm sure that there's a fee attached to that. Putin does nothing that doesn't benefit Putin. I mean, they got all these deep water ports, and they have all the wineries and all of that. So I don't know what's in it for Putin, but there's a lot in it for the European Union. And you remember that Putin was making deals with Angela Merkel recently, right? It has to be over this Greece thing, why they were having those secret meetings. Now, Merkel is tired of carrying the weight of the whole European Union. I mean, the French, they work 3 days a week, 5 hours a day, and then they have 8 weeks on vacation and all of that. So they're not very productive. They do chip in some, but not a lot. The UK, they chip in a lot of money into the European Union, but they blow a lot of money, too. They're as bad as the progressives here. And they're not willing to put up any austerity plans, so they're going in a hole. So I think it's beneficial to Putin. Plus, with Merkel, she gets to continue to deal with Putin on the gas. So now she shakes off the luggage of Greece, lets Putin pick that up. Her deals go just along fine with Putin. If the European Union falls apart, that's no sweat off her back. England and France will do fine. Italy's in trouble. Portugal's in trouble. And Spain's in trouble, but, to be on their own. So I think this is beneficial to the European Union to get rid of the dead weight of Greece. But that's just the beginning. That's the beginning of the end of the European Union, because other people are going to say, well, I want out too. So I think that's what's going on there. As far as their money and stuff, they just had an opportunity to vote in, people with a little bit of conservative sense. Instead, they went full-blown commie. So, my father gave me advice I couldn't say on air, but that's how I feel about it. Whatever you're going to do it.
They don't have any more choice than we do. They don't have any more choice than we do. You pick ultra-commie, or you pick socialist piece of crap that's been selling you down the drain for the last 8 years or whatever.
Exactly.
And so they do something different because it's like it's got to be better than this creep, but it ain't. It's twice as bad. They do the same thing as we get here. Which bum do you want to choose? And then when they get in there, you're surprised that there's a bum in there.
Yeah, you got your choice around here. You can go for soft communism with socialism, or you can go full-blown communism. It's all fake trades. It's like if you don't go for gay marriage, you hate gays. Isn't there another choice? Or is that the only two you're offering here? Because
and that's
neither
just
it's true.
Yeah, if you don't go along with the global plan, then they demonize you as a bigot.
Right.
It's the same thing every time.
Yeah, so why do you hate Greeks? No, I don't hate Greeks. I'm just telling you, this is the way it is. But they just, why do you hate gays? I don't. Matter of fact, I'm glad they can get married. I just didn't think they were going to fornicate in the street, but, consummate the marriage. But
well, and you know what? That's up to the states. But that didn't work out so well in California a couple years ago because they figured, you know what? We know California is going to vote for gay marriage, so let's let them vote, and it'll give the whole country a look at real democracy in action. Well, guess what happened? Yeah. They all went to the polls, and a large proportion of it were black people this time, and they voted it down. But you see, that didn't work out because they thought, oh no, we thought it was going to be. We let them do this because we thought they were going to vote the way we wanted them to vote. So they just had a judge come in and nullify it all.
Right.
And now they don't even give the option for states to decide. Now 9 unelected lawyers makes the decision for 320 million Americans. No need to make a law in Congress. No need to wait for it to go to the Senate. No need for the president to sign anything. Let's just declare it's the law of the land.
Yes. That's the point that we should all be furious about. Nobody gives a damn who gays marry. If you don't let them marry each other, what do you think? They're going to turn straight? They're not. Okay? Nobody cares. We care as much about what goes on in their bedroom as they should care about what goes on in ours. But I got a request, though. Keep it in the bedroom. Get it out of the streets now. This is too much. However, the process is what the problem is. Just as Scott just explained, it was taken away from the people. The people had a referendum. They voted on it. They said no. But that did not matter. And then it goes before the courts. And 2 of the judges who decided it had already performed gay marriage in states where it was legal, or provinces. Ginsburg married somebody in D.C., and Kagan married them right at the courthouse. So it was legal then for that. So that could be a state's right. Nobody cares about that. But when it was taken away from the states and now federalized by these judges, those 2 judges should have recused themselves because they had performed the ceremony where it was legal in a state. But now this is a new law. This is a whole new ball game. It's all federalized now. So they had no business even being a part of that case if they were going to decide to federalize it. Another problem is there are 17 enumerated powers to the federal government in our constitutional structure. Marriage is not one of them. So anything that's not an enumerated power is left to the people and the states. So here's these Supreme Court justices who don't know squat about the Constitution, obviously, or they are in defiance of the Constitution and have violated their oath of office.
Which they all do on an hourly basis. I mean, you had that wrinkled old hag, what's her name, telling people in other countries that, you should be using the Constitution from the United Nations or something. Don't use the U.S. That one sucks.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Ginsburg. Yes. We still got to hold her onto her because can you imagine if Obama gets the opportunity to replace her?
It doesn't get any worse than that. You can't get any worse than that.
Yeah, we heard that about Bush.
You can't get any worse than Fred Flintstone in Pearls. Atlantic Hagen, if you didn't know who I was talking about.
Yeah, and now, as far as marriages go, okay, for centuries, since the beginning of man, people have been married. They take an oath in front of God, and that is considered a marriage. Then the churches got involved, and it was for recording purposes, of course, and permission. You used to have permission from the family or permission from your church, things like that. No matter what, it was still a right that had nothing to do with the government. All of a sudden, the government steps in. They take away your right to marriage, and they sell it back to you for a permit.
Like they do everything. Like they do everything. Your right to fish. You mean you don't have a right to feed yourself? You know, hunting license, fishing license. You know, pretty soon you're going to have a breeding license and a crapping license.
Exactly. Just like fishing. You know, you could fish all day, any day. Now you got to have a license for that. So they take away your right, and then they sell it back to you. That doesn't sound right to anybody. And now they have gay marriage. Well, like I said, nobody cares who you marry. But the government, according to the First Amendment, as far as religion goes, it says that you have a right to practice your religion freely. And the government has no jurisdiction over that, not even to tax the churches. They don't have any jurisdiction over them. So they can't remove their tax-exempt status when they never had the authority to tax them to begin with. That was never a power of the government. But they're not going to adhere to that either. But they're threatening churches now. That's bigotry. That is the government specifically targeting an entity because of its religious beliefs. That's illegal. Even
you
with
know what?
The Supreme
Court. They did
Court.
that with the Tea Party, and they got away with it. So sky's the limit now. Now anybody can be, subject to unfair treatment and targeting crap like that when the Department of Justice and the entire administration can go after the Tea Party during an election season and just deny them any perks that all these libtard groups get.
Oh, yeah.
And they get away with it. So once they got away with it, now what's to stop it? There's no one to stop them.
Yeah, well, actually, that's illegal, too, because people have a right to redress their grievance. It's not a privilege. So you shouldn't even have to file for a nonprofit status or a tax-exempt status. You have a right to redress grievances. It's in the First Amendment. If people would just read the Constitution and understand their rights, we wouldn't be in this position because they could tell you anything. If you don't know,
see, that doesn't matter though. You can be a master at the Constitution, and if judges don't recognize it, and cops don't recognize it, and politicians don't recognize it, judges don't recognize it, president doesn't recognize it, it's a dead law. When you can
see, that's the
choose
problem.
Which laws to follow and which ones to ignore, it's over, and there's nobody to enforce. You know, they should say you violate the Constitution 3 times, and more than 50% of the states agree that you crapped on the Constitution. You're out, pal. You're impeached automatically. But there's no consequences for doing this. So you cite the Constitution, they just laugh. It's just like when King what's his face was bragging about being a constitutional lawyer. Well, the only reason why you become a constitutional lawyer is 2 reasons. Because you love the Constitution and you want to protect it. Or you want to find every loophole you can think of to screw it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it was no surprise which one he was going to do.
Yeah, and back to the Tea Party, the Freedom Works and all of them. Why do they even have to apply for tax-exempt status? What business is it of the government what they're doing? They're redressing grievances, and you have a right to gather, and that's what they're doing. It should have nothing to do with a tax status, period. Why are you paying taxes on a right to gather and a right to redress grievances?
It was unreported income. Well, they can donate to this guy, and they're not, performing a service or working for him, so we can't rape them over the coals on income tax. How can we get that money?
Yeah. That's a good.
This is the problem with having lawyers as your politicians. But if you think they're going to use the law for your benefit, You're sadly
Mhm.
mistaken.
Yeah, well, we see the Constitution as a means to restrain the government. The government sees the Constitution as a challenge to be overcome.
Well,
That's
they've done
what's going
it.
on here.
They have successfully buried that.
Yeah, and they
You know.
used the Constitution to attack the Constitution. That makes sense?
Yeah,
They really
it does.
did.
With
Everything they did
psychos.
was legal.
Yeah.
Everything they did was legal.
Everything Hitler did was legal.
That's right. You're right. You're absolutely right. We'll get back to the gay marriage thing too. We've got a few things here we got to talk about. Obama signed that fast track authority today, while nobody was looking. It says that he signed it into law, cementing a major legislative victory at the end of a bruising, months-long battle with his own party. Signed the measure during a brief ceremony.
Show.
Yeah, it was all show.
I mean, come
Now,
on.
it's supposed to speed the completion of the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations with 11 other nations. So where are these other nations? What kind of money do they have? What kind of trade they're going to be doing, especially when the whole economy is crashing right now, the world economy, not just Greece. When Greece goes, the Eurozone goes, the markets go. China's not doing so well. Japan's not doing so well. I told you, their markets opened up down 700. You know damn well our stock market is artificial. I just told you the banks all say they're rigging it. The International Bank of Settlements say that the interest rates are at zero right now. So you can't go any lower than that. I know that the Europeans are going below zero. But what are they doing? Giving you money to take their money now? And why would you invest in a bank if the interest rate is zero? You put your money in the bank, you're not going to get any type of a return on it. If you put a little savings account up there, remember it used to be like you get 5% interest? You don't get that anymore. Now you get charged for them holding your money. So
it's just all a joke. I mean, when you have George Soros breaking the Bank of England back in the day, and he's been allowed to live high on the hog all this time, destroying countries, taking them over, collapsing economies. It's over.
He had a hand in Greece,
there's nothing
too.
you can do about it.
He had a hand in busting Greece, too. He's been shorting them for a while. He's banking on them failing, and he's facilitating them failing.
That's what he does. Destroys currencies, and he knows the one that's going to go up next, and he puts all his money in there. And, it's not even money. He's just another puppet, just like all the rest of them. He's just a different,
but he's a
different class of puppet.
He said
he
a
does
while
the dirty
ago
work for the Rockefellers and Rothschilds. He takes the heat for it.
Yeah, well,
keeps their name out of the press.
He said a while ago, first it's BRICS and then it's PIGS. Well, PIGS is Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. It's already breaking Greece. It's already got BRICS all sewn up. BRICS is the one that, everybody's talking about Putin. Putin's laughing at everyone's face. Putin's not going broke. He's got a brand new bank and a whole bunch of new partners.
Man. Every one of them is involved. All those world leaders are there for a reason, and they're all playing their little part, and they all pretend like, they got to do this and that, and it's just for show. The little peons run around thinking that they have a choice in the matter, or there's a good guy and a bad guy. They're all bad guys.
Yeah. Now, we are getting a warning, too, from the FBI, from the CIA, from Homeland Security.
Yeah,
they're telling us to expect an attack over the 4th of July holidays. They always tell us what's going to happen. Now, you all know about Jade Helm, and you know about Operation Northern Exposure and all of them. Every time they bring all their equipment in for the Jade Helm, exercises and stuff, they never take it away with them. They leave it. And now we're expecting this attack. And there's FBI setting up like satellite stations all over the place. So now
and
you
they're
have
also contacting militia groups and patriot groups and telling them to get their guys ready and to help out, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what's going to happen. They're going to set up these militia and patriot groups, and they're going to blame Christians and or Southerners and say it was retaliation for gay marriage and the Confederate flag being banned.
Yeah, that
those
Confederate...
damn right wingers. They're worse than ISIS. We told you.
You know how many people fell for that Confederate flag thing?
Boy.
Not Walmart and Amazon, they didn't fall for it, and not the Black Lives Matter and Ferguson Matters and South Carolina Matters people. They didn't fall for it either. They orchestrated it. If anybody out there believes that all of a sudden the whole country, major retailers like Walmart and Amazon, all these Soros little commie paid-for groups, all of a sudden, on the same day, decided to go after the Confederate flag, please change the channel right now. Because if you can't pick up on a completely orchestrated operation, how are you ever going to see the big picture?
Well, it all is. You know, the White House had the gay light rainbow ordered 6 months in advance, along with all these other states, including the New York Police Department. They all had their order in for all the rainbow crap. So, you know, it's just they have the program to know what's happening next, and we all sit around and you know, think we're discovering it on the internet.
Yeah, well, look at this operation. All right, this woman, her name is Bree. The other night when that flag was taken down in front of the State House, everybody was thinking, oh, yeah, this chick shimmied up the pole and tore down the flag, and she's a hero, and Michael Moore is in there. I'll pay for her bill. And that guy, Sean King, who's D-Ray's buddy there, he's saying, I'll pay $10,000 to the person who did it. You know, it was all hype. D-Ray, on his own timeline, said he'd like to congratulate Bree and her team. And he showed a video. Well, in the video, here's this woman in a hoist. She didn't shimmy up any poles. She was on a hoist that required rigging. Okay, so now you've got to have riggers in there putting all that stuff up. You have to have the camera crew. It said that Bree was there with her team. She had a helmet, and she's got all this backing, and it turns out that she is not just some woman who is offended by the flag. She is a hardcore activist. She's with the NAACP. She's with the South Carolina chapter of the Fergies and the Black Lives Matter. She's been in all kinds of news reports. She's got a page that is pure communist radical. She interrupted CNN the night of the funeral and was talking about how we need a revolution and black people going to fight and all that. That's the same chick. She's a paid agitator. And
the police department
nobody noticed. Nobody noticed.
Stand down as well.
Yeah, well, nobody noticed a crew of riggers up there setting up a hoist. Nobody noticed this whole team hanging around. Videographers, the media was there. All the little Black Lives Matter little commies were all there. And nobody noticed. Come on, folks. Come on, man. It was a setup.
All of it is. All of it is. Every bit of it. From BRICS and the global, world crisis to a flag.
Right.
Everything.
And then, you had this funeral with this Reverend Pinckney. Reverend Pinckney voted against gay marriage. Reverend Pinckney voted against something else, too. Oh, he voted for the Confederate flag. He was also under investigation for misappropriating money. I am starting to believe that was probably a wax dummy in that casket they were showing in that church. And then Obama, of course, they couldn't get the stuff stirred up in South Carolina. The people in South Carolina, the good, decent people, went there and prayed. Okay? They didn't go there to cause any problems. It was white people, black people. It was, a whole bunch of people. So that didn't work out. You know, we're all being played. You know, they even shutting down free speech. They don't even know the consequences of getting rid of these flags. You know, you might as well burn books. Why aren't you out there burning Bibles? It's the same damn thing.
Oh, they will. That's coming, all right? But they got to do it in increments. You know, they're going to ban every symbol that makes anybody, you know, proud of their nation or any sort of national pride. You know, American flag is going to be, you know, down the road. So are crosses. You know, they're going to be gone from military cemeteries and government buildings and whatever.
Mhm. Well, that flag thing is just a
beginning
vessel.
of it.
You know, I'll tell you something right now. This is Alinsky being masterfully played. Okay, they have a major portion of Southerners all labeled as racist now because of that flag. Choose your target. Polarize it.
Demonize
that
it.
That is Alinsky.
Then eliminate
demonize it. Eliminate it. That's a sucker's game. And they're not going to stop there. I mean, what's next? What's Walmart and Amazon going to be in next?
You know, and I've been telling people for years that Walmart were a company of scumbags. And mostly I was attacked by right-wingers. Oh, Walmart's a good American company, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know, those big box stores were only created to destroy small businesses. Sam Walton didn't go to big cities and put up Walmarts because they were big cities. No, he went to medium-sized cities, and he set them up. So all the mom-and-pop stores on the corner, you know, a little drugstore, a little toy store, etc., all went out of business because they couldn't compete with Chinese slave labor, cheap plastic crap.
Mhm. And now that they've put all these little stores out of business, you can't get a flag because Walmart doesn't sell them anymore. So Scott's right. Not only that, but I got to tell you something about Walmart. We've talked about Jade Helm. We've talked about the computer system, the teledesic, all that. Do you know that in the 1990s, Walmart became part of that major new internet system? They have their own satellites. Walmart has their own satellites. Think about that. Now, if you're wondering why Walmarts were chosen as headquarters for Jade Helm, that's why. Because they have their own telecommunications system. They have their own power substations. Each of those stores has its own substation, same as Home Depot. They generate their own electricity. The stores are fortresses. They have no windows.
You want to know another company that's going to be a part of the government one of these days? McDonald's. Because even when they asked the guy that created McDonald's a long, long time ago, they said, "What business? How do you like being in the hamburger business?" And he goes, "I'm not in the hamburger business. I'm in the real estate business." Because they got a little chunk of real estate, you know, in every town, 3 or 4 places, most prime real estate, all over the country.
Mhm.
Now all of a sudden, you know, after all these billions of dollars, all of a sudden, Walmart or McDonald's is going broke. What's happening? You know, like it's a big surprise. Like all of a sudden, overnight, people got, you know, thinking about healthy food. People don't care about if it's healthy or not. They want it cheap. That's why they eat that kind of crap.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? They got to phase them out because it's going to this TPP global food thing. You know, centralizing power and the food supply and everything in one area. So they'll have their own chain of McDonald's type places, but they'll be different.
Right. You're right. You know, we gotta stop falling for these soccer games, though. We really do. You know, like I said, that flag is a vessel. Let's talk about guns for a second. Today there was a actually good lawsuit ruling today. There's a gun ammunition dealer Let's see here. Let me tell you the name of it. Lucky Gunner. All right, Lucky Gunner was selling ammunition online. And that Brady Center took them to court because they say that the kid that did the shooting, with the Batman shooting their homes, he got the ammunition online. So they tried to blame this company, Lucky Gunner, for that shooting. Well, it went to court, and it went through all the, the lower courts, and finally it got up to the big courts. And the court said, this is a appellate court. It says they were sued for the Arizona movie theater shooting. It says the order, which was issued last week, comes after Judge Richard Metz dismissed the gun control group's suit that sought to hold Lucky Gunner legally responsible for the 2012 shooting. And the Brady Center had argued that the Lucky Gunner sells ammunition in a unreasonably dangerous way, and they create a public nuisance. And they went on, with the feelings. People, stop thinking with feelings. Lose the emotion. Look at things clinically, please. It says, a crazed homicidal killer should not be able to amass a military arsenal. Well, that is true, isn't it? So now they're going to make everybody crazy. However, nobody knew this guy was a crazed homicidal killer. But the judge disagreed with the Brady Center argument. He said the suit was filed for propaganda purposes. It's apparent that this case was filed to pursue the political purposes of the Brady Center. And, given the failure to present any cognizable legal claim, bringing these defendants into Colorado court, where the prosecution of James Holmes was proceeding, appears to be more of an opportunity to propagandize. Anyhow, the Brady Center was told that they have to pay for Lucky Gunner's lawyers and stuff, and they have to give them back all the bullets that were seized. And the Brady Center's appealing it, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere after that. And then I hear people saying, oh, yeah, we got to get rid of guns, and, nobody should have guns, and the only people that should have guns is the cops and the military. These are the same people that are running around the streets saying, F the police, and the military is baby killers. So if they're baby killers and they're brutalizing people, why would you want them to be the only ones with guns? These people make me dizzy.
They're
Which
supposed
is it?
to. They're supposed to. That's what they do. I mean, they say the most asinine things, and then turn around and say the opposite, and it's all just a mind game. It's because normal people can't even wrap their brain around how nut jobs think. So it drives you nuts.
Yeah.
They continually to do this.
And then,
it's like the liberal that came out and said, well, you know what? If people would have had guns in that church, I would have hate to have known what would have happened next. So many more people would have died. I mean, just the opposite of common sense.
Yeah. I can't even understand them. Yeah, cops are bad, military's bad, and guns are bad, and people shouldn't have guns. Only cops and military should have guns. Well, didn't you just tell me they were bad? And then, this Confederate flag. Okay, the Confederate flag is bad and all of that. But in Chicago, there have been 1,124 murders already this year. Not all with guns, by the way, but 1,124 murders. Out of those, 1,100 of them were black on black. Okay, so there's your real black genocide. And what did that flag, what flag killed those people? I'm sure they're not running around up in Chicago with a Confederate flag now. So what are they going to blame that on? Okay,
That's
the guns?
There's no logic behind it at all. And they probably photoshopped that flag in that kid's hand, even if he's even real.
That whole thing is photoshopped.
Okay.
That whole thing.
Because you know what?
Scott.
There's a lot of people going around committing crimes, and they got an Obama 2012 T-shirt on. Why don't you ban that symbol? Oh, well, that's different.
You got Jay-Z
See, that's what
running
I mean.
around. You got Jay-Z, Beyonce's old man, running around with a Che
Yeah.
Guevara T-shirt on. Che Guevara hated blacks. All right?
Yeah, well, once again,
he's killed more blacks than that Confederate flag, that's for sure. Now, as far as, the guns go, the guns are not the issue. Chicago has the most stringent gun control. And
they know this.
Every time they make a law.
As soon as 40 people get killed in Chicago, they go up to Rahm Emanuel and say, "What do you think you should do about this?" "Well, I think we need more gun control." You see? I mean, it's just the opposite of common sense. So it makes anybody with half a brain or common sense just want to beat their head up against the wall.
Well, I got news for everybody. If you were not in Chicago and your gun was not in Chicago, don't get blamed for it. Every time something happens, they want to blame the people who didn't do it. And then they want to blame the guns.
You see, they have an agenda. They have a program, and they say, okay, this is what we're going to do in 2015. 1, we're going to make gay marriage legal. 2, we're going to ban the Confederate flag. 3, we're going to pass TPP. 4, we're going to repeal the Second Amendment. And 5, we're going to do this. And then they hand that to someone like
we're going to make
Puerto
Rico a state.
Right? Right.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, here's the script for this week, and hands it to the powers that be, like, a soap opera writer hands the script over to the producer, and then they make up this story, and they give it to the news to make it, to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sit there and argue about how can they do this and how can they do that, because it has nothing to do with it. They're going to pass it anyway. Just like when this fast track thing was going on. I mean, I had people unfriending me on Facebook because I said Cruz was going to cave, that they are all in it together, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And, they treated me like I insulted their mother or something. What happens? Cruz is for the fast trade to dictatorship, and so's Walker, and all of them are all of a sudden. It's just like,
Walker
so you have absolutely no one to hang any hope on at all.
Except Donald
Trump.
Come out, and he's getting
they come out and make a big stink about gay marriage. It's like, you know what? I want you to get pissed off about the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the fast track to dictatorship. Gay marriage, it bothers me that they didn't go through the normal channels and let states decide and individuals decide. But that's nothing compared to handing over your sovereignty and selling America down the drain.
Yeah, but you're wrong there.
You're going to pick your battles. Then
you're wrong there. It's not nothing. It's not nothing. The way that process happened, that is major. Major.
Not compared to selling out your country to a bunch of globalists that are going to take over every aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just one aspect of your life, because the Congress is irrelevant anyway. So it's sort of like beating a dead horse. We're getting pissed that the Supreme Court did this. The Congress is worthless anyway, because the president could just rewrite law on the fly. Have Obamacare, ram it down everybody's throat, and then change it every week. So that's just a formality. But this thing with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, everything you buy, sell, watch, listen to, read, everything is going to be
goes through the UN
owned and operated by the same 6 a-holes that own all the media.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they want to take the guns away.
Concentration
because every time they make a gun law, they only work on people who obey gun laws.
And they know
the good people will give up the gun.
And they know
that just makes them sitting ducks.
They know more people are going to die and more criminals are going to kill people because they're unarmed. But they know this, and they want that because that fits into their depopulation plan. So does gay marriage. If you're gay, you're not knocking anybody up, are you?
That's the point. Yeah, that is a point. That's a very good point. Donald Trump, he's in a world of trash just for talking.
Yeah, and him too. You know what? He's like Ross Perot. He goes around, he talks a good game, and, you like him because at least he doesn't sound like just another cardboard cutout of all these other jackasses running for president.
I like him because of the testosterone level, because he's an alpha male, because he doesn't sound like some little sissy sitting there talking to us.
Okay? Wait till they start looking into his past and his secret life like they did Sarah Palin.
Yeah, well, he's an open book, this guy. With Trump, you get what you get. All right? But, these things have to be said. And he's aggravating a lot of people. NBC booted him today.
I like
that.
I do. And I do. I like it because, he's a pain in their ass, and he upsets a lot of people. And, that's a good thing. But it's all just for entertainment purposes only. They're going to run his ass on a out of town on a train. You even got him calling Charles Krauthammer an a-hole, because Krauthammer, establishment ex-Democrat stooge, is calls him a joke on Fox News. Why not give the guy a chance? Why
why
he's
in trouble?
He's not a career politician.
Well, why he's in trouble is because he mentioned the fact that these illegals coming over the border and from Mexico are criminals. They're murderers and rapists. And then he said not all of them, but there are a lot of murderers and rapists. So now everybody's all flipped out saying, Trump said all Mexicans are rapists. No, he didn't.
I know.
He was talking about the criminal illegals coming across the border. Well, I found a statistic.
People to this day still think that Sarah Palin said I can see Russia from my house. And it was Tina Fey pretending to be Sarah Palin on Saturday Night Live. But 70% of the people and 90% of liberals still think Sarah Palin said that.
Yeah, no, she didn't say that. But now, I found a flashback from 2006. Bush was still president, okay? And, so you don't think I'm just specifically picking on Obama. This woman did a study. Her name is Sherman Coughlin, the last name. She studied 1,500 cases in 2005 of criminal illegals. 525 of them, or 35%, were child molesters. 358, or 24%, were rapists. 617, or 41%, were sexual homicides and serial murders. All right, of the sex-related homicides, the most common method was for an offender to break into a residence and ambush his victims. Not only were the victims raped, but she said 6% were mutilated. She goes on about how, the crime scenes were bloody and stuff. She says in 81% of the cases, offenders were drinking or using drugs. 63% of the offenders had been deported on other offenses prior to the sex crimes. The highest number of sex offenders, according to the study, came from Mexico and El Salvador. El Salvador was the original home to the next highest number, by the way. The other countries of origin included Brazil, China, Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, Jamaica, Nicaragua, Puerto Rico, Russia, and Vietnam. And then those that were deported simply returned illegally again. So, Denise wrote an article, too. And it comes up to, on the average, there's 44 murders a day in the United States. 121 murders attributed to illegals released by Obama administration just this year alone. That guy pulled off the biggest prison break in the history of man. He let out 60,000 illegal criminals. Now, damn well, if the only crime that they had been known to commit was coming into the country illegally, they were not detained. So the ones in jail were detained for a reason. And then I got into a conversation about, all right, so they're not rapists and murderers. Let me tell you something. Who thinks, do you see those pictures of those unaccompanied children? How did that 4-year-old baby get from El Salvador all the way through 2 borders, over mountains, trekked through valleys and fields and hopped trains and followed GPS and maps? Either the kid's a genius or it didn't happen. So when you start looking, you find the Catholics brought them in, the Lutherans brought them in, La Raza brought them in. They never trekked an inch They got on a bus, taken to an airport, put on a plane, and brought to the United States. Or put on a bus and brought to the United States. They didn't trek. And they were given all their new Obama shoes and clothes, and they were greeted at the border by our Border Patrol, now known as
and going
greeted.
back handing them teddy bears.
Yeah, well, you know, teddy bear, but what's the difference with a teddy bear now that they're here? They're not going anywhere. But now they're averaging a murder a day. At least one murder a day is committed by an illegal. There's 44 murders a day, and at least one of them, most days 2. So
they had, you know,
Trump
like I
was
said,
not wrong.
This country,
Trump was
this country
not wrong.
was pretty, you know, this country has been pretty peaceful, you know, compared to other countries. So you have to import scumbags. You got to fly in, you know, hundreds of thousands of Muslims from countries that hate our guts. You gotta bring in as many of the most low-life South Americans and Mexicans that you can possibly get in here, and just set them free and let out, you know. And then when that's still not enough, so hey, why don't we just release 65,000 out of American prisons?
Yeah, and then they tell you that
any other country, any other country would have the whole government in chains. If this was Egypt,
Iceland did it.
They'd all be sitting in there with Morsi right now.
That's a true story. Now, as far as these countries go, why are we sending aid to countries who have all these citizens here? Who's left to support over there? And then, when I was talking over at CBS at Facebook today, I was telling them, you know, you're telling us that these people are good for our economy. If they're so good for our economy, how come their countries are broke? And you know, you're telling us that
right?
you make these laws all day, every day that citizens are expected to obey. So now you get an illegal in the mix, and we don't expect them to obey our laws. How come we're celebrating these people, but we're still sticking to the laws? If the laws are not for them, the laws are not for us either. Why do we bother obeying laws?
I don't know.
Well, how about we send them back? How about we send them back to their home countries and then have them go through the legal process to come back in? You know, these people act like we don't have an immigration policy. We've had an immigration policy since we became a country. You know, lots of people went through immigration processes. Ellis Island, you used to have to get checked before you even were sent out to make sure you didn't have communicable diseases. You had to have an established residence, you know, or somebody to sponsor you. You were required to learn the language. Diversity does not mean assimilation, not at all. You can have one or the other. You can't have both. You either, you know, if you want diversity, what you're doing is you're setting up tribal regions all around the country. Nobody has to speak the same language. Nobody has the same culture. Nobody has anything. I mean, it's okay to live next door to people and hang out with people and stuff, but that's part of assimilating into a community. You don't just set up a no-go zone like the Muslims do and say, screw all you Americans, you can't come in here. I just saw a video the other day of a white boy accidentally walking into a Muslim neighborhood and getting his butt beat. You know, that's not what we do in the United States. You come to the United States is because you want to come to the United States and become part of the fabric of this country, not so you can set up your own exclusive little tribal section. Not so you can speak a different language. How dare they? Actually,
that was true in
how
the 40s.
Dare they? Would you even consider? Would you even consider going to Russia and setting up your own little diverse neighborhood and telling the Russians, no, we're not going to assimilate. You're going to do it our way. You'd be sitting with Morsi too in the Middle East. No, you're going to do it our way.
They kind of did that with Chechnya and stuff. I mean, you know, they're all Muslims there. I mean,
everybody, you know, Muslims used to be cool. They were a novelty, you know. Nobody ever knew any Muslims. You know, they were like new and fresh, and you see them walking around in their burqas, and they're different, and you don't really understand. Now you do. Yeah, when
to this day, I've never
them,
seen one. Okay? To this day, I have still not seen one, and I'm glad.
Oh, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. 40% of Boston.
I'm sure. Well, okay, I take that back. Except for when I was in Omaha the last time, and I was living in a nice, rich white neighborhood. I woke up one day and the entire parking lot was like, 300 Somali Muslims. Except,
right,
they weren't dressed up like trash bags, so I didn't even notice.
All right, I used the Muslims as an example. Let's use the Mexicans for an example. All right, they come here. They're here 10, 15, 20 years, and you go to deport them, and they say, but I've been here 2 decades. You can't deport me. And then you look at them and say, you've been here 20 years, and you found everything but an immigration office? Obviously, you don't want to be an American. Because if you did, you would have found an immigration office by now.
When Castro released all those prisoners and sent them here to Miami, I mean, that should have been a wake-up call.
Well, what do you think
they were
Guatemala
allowed to get away with that?
is doing? What do you think
they
all
could
those
get away with
little,
anything.
You
Remember
think all
that?
those sweet little young boys with all the tattoos on their necks and everything didn't just get out of a youth detention center, put on a bus, and sent here? Of course they did.
That's what they
They're
want.
opening their orphanages. They're opening their youth offender centers. They're opening their prisons and shipping all those people here. They're not sending the techies. They're not sending, like rocket scientists here. Oh, no. They're sending drug dealers and gang members and actually, yes, rapists. Now, you seem to get offended when I say Mexicans. You seem to get offended when I say Muslims, but you're getting 60,000 Syrians, right? Not Christian Syrians, by the way. The Christians, the ones that are getting slaughtered and getting their heads chopped off.
Yeah, those are left to slaughter.
Yeah, those are,
that the Pope is too the Pope and the President is too busy preaching about global warming.
Yeah.
And
might as well
and
piss off the
else
Catholics too. The Pope's a communist. Might as well piss off the Catholics too. Yeah, the Pope is a communist. Came from a communist country, has communist values. Telling you, everything about the church doctrine he's changing. Does he get to do that? There's a history
he can do
of the Catholic
he wants.
Church. Yeah, and now he's all about the climate change and the redistribution of wealth. And I mean, they pulled him right out of Bill Ayers' backyard, for crying out loud. We got to take a break.
I think he graduated from the same fake colleges that Obama did.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and how come he's a pope anyhow? How come Pope Benedict is still alive, but we got Pope Francis? Don't you got to wait for one of them to die before you get another one?
I guess not.
Not anymore, right? Everything's changed. Not all change is good, ladies and gentlemen. And hello again. We're back. You're listening to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report, right here at PRN Radio Network. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here with me, too. We also have a couple of our wonderful colleagues in the chat rooms, Lynn, Anna, and AstroTurf, putting all the links and stuff in there, so please say hi to each other. All right, we're back. Anything you want to bring up, my friend?
Nah.
All right. Let's talk about Obama for a minute, because I really love this guy. Come on. Last week, before he went to this thing down in South Carolina, the funeral, and was talking in his preachy voice, and he had no idea the words or the tune of Amazing Grace. He was reading it, and he was trying to stick with the tune, but I heard him sing Al Green, so he does know music. He just did not know that song, but he was winging it. He thought he did such a wonderful job. But before he went, our friend Ulsterman put out an article about how he was going to go there and he was going to save his image, and on the way back, Ulsterman says that he laughed and giggled and broke out in song, and he repeatedly offered a series of fist bumps to any and all takers, and he was just yucking it up. He thought he did so wonderful. He humiliated himself, and he humiliated the country along with it. He even said, we need to overcome religious beliefs in a church. So, he's saying that, we welcome today's news, and not that was in church, it was the Rose Garden, rather. We got to welcome today's news and should be mindful of that fact and recognize different viewpoints and stuff. He said sometimes there's days like this when that slow and steady effort is rewarded with justice that arrives like a thunderbolt. But then he goes on to say it's going to give us hope on the many issues which we grapple grapple with, and painfully real change is possible, he said. Shifts in hearts and minds is possible. So he decided that now you have to overcome your religious beliefs to adhere to his doctrine. And then he said that he feels like he's doing God's work. So now he's turned himself into a god. A demigod, but he's a god now. And he stood there with his best artificial Reverend Wright voice, and it was pathetic.
You got to know what his definition of God is first, though. You know, his God's probably Satan.
Mhm.
And he's a good representative for him, I think. I just can't wait until I can wake up and turn on the computer and the news and the Facebook and not see one post of his face on there.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a certain form of torture to have to wake up every day and to see 700 pictures of him before you go to bed, along with people like Hillary and all these other just nasty, wretched gargoyles.
Yeah.
And then when you're seeing them laughing it up and yucking it up and high-fiving and fist-bumping and, what they're doing is they're just laughing at people. Can you believe these morons actually believe
that's exactly what he's doing.
Gay marriage when I was running in 2008?
Where do you think it's gay marriage? Hillary said up until April that she was against gay marriage. Justice Kagan, she said that there was no constitutional right. No constitutional right. In 2009, she said there's no constitutional right to gay marriage. Was that tacky, or was she lying to get the job? Where do you think this is going? How far do you think this is going to go? Bigamy, things like that? Polygamy?
Well, yeah, that's not really a big one on their list, okay? No, it's going to go to pedophilia next, because see, they have to appease all these millions of Muslims that are flying into the country.
Yeah, but we have an age of consent.
And then they'll start sticking up for religious liberty, you see. No, they'll just lower that. They'll just lower the consent to, I don't know, 6.
Yeah, well, I got news for everybody, and I want I want it on record. When the I see an article here. It says the pedos want equal rights. I'm not even going to read the story. The headline's enough. I got to tell you something right now, folks. That's a line that will not be crossed without a violent struggle. I don't recommend siding with the pedophiles because it's not going to go well. And if you can't protect children, you suck. And you should be treated equally or even worse than the prep.
How many abortions been performed since Roe versus Wade? Protect the what? The innocent?
The babies.
Wow. Well, you know what? Nothing gets more innocent when you're in a womb, completely helpless, struggling just to be born.
Yeah, well,
and they were talking about post-birth abortions. Remember that one? Liberals getting up there in front of Congress and committees
until the kids
talking
3.
about, well, you know what? We should be able to kill kids up to age 3 because they're not self-aware. Remember that one?
I do.
So if they will do that, if they are talking about outright murder of your 3-year-old, this is nothing. This will be nothing.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. I do not recommend going after the children, especially mine. And if I'm not there, whoever stands up for the pedophiles, you got to smack them, all right? And then call me and I'll come down and help you. But absolutely no way. There will be violence. And I guarantee that. And I might even start the fight myself.
It's just like this Confederate flag. They figure, you know what? We got all the military lined up now in the southern states. We got Jade Helm running smooth.
Mm-hmm.
We got supercomputer going.
It's not
we
just
got
the
satellites. We got everybody. Yeah, but it's concentrated down there. It's all south of Nebraska.
Look at that prison break. That whole thing is a hoax too. All right, those 2 guys, They look more like cops than they look like inmates, believe it. At a maximum security prison,
do. They probably
what
are.
inmate, no inmate gets to get tools and cook in their cells and alter the electrical system so that they can cook in their cells. No inmate goes into those catwalks. I don't care how much help you have. They make it sound like this maximum security prison has all these little nooks and crannies and secret places. No, they don't. No, they don't. They have tiers. And if you're in the center of that tier in the control room, you can see into every one of those cells, even in the old prisons. I worked in a prison. I know what's behind those walls. Now, those people did not do what is said that they have done. And then tell me how many people would break out of prison that they're supposed to be doing life without and hole up in a cabin that belongs to corrections officers. Funny,
That's
they
what
had
I mean.
shotguns and booze and camouflage clothes. Are you kidding me? And then
everything's
fake. This woman that was
know,
supposed to help them out. Come on, guys. I'm speaking to you guys.
Just like this. Just like
nobody's that hot up in prison to deal with her. 2 dates, double
just like
dating
the
these
church
guys.
shooter with the Dumb and Dumber haircut. Did they really take him to McDonald's? Really? Because any cops will pull you over because you threw a cigarette out the window and shoot you in the head now. But this mass murderer that just killed 9 people or whatever it was in that black church, they stop over, ask him if he please step out of his car. Hey, would you like to go to Mickey D's before you take you in? Really?
Yeah, but that's to push the white privilege agenda.
Oh,
They're saying he's white, he's
I know.
privileged. And I got another thing to talk to you about that, too.
It's ridiculous.
You do all that graphic stuff and all those, Photoshops and stuff. Look at the photograph of that boy. He has the exact same expression in every one of those pictures. It's
I know
like, It's every bit of it's photoshopped, including the Confederate flag. He's burning an American
flag. Of
flag,
course, and it's so easy.
They photoshopped a Confederate flag. Funny, right after that happened, everybody was already in place to do this Confederate flag agenda. They even had the riggers set up so Bree could get up on the freaking pole and take the one in front of the State House down without anybody looking, even though she brought a whole production crew and riggers with her.
Just like the Black Lives Matter spray painting all over the national monuments. I mean, this is George Soros funded. You know, they have the police stand down. Hey, don't bother this. This is one of our agenda. These are some of our community people. They're going to go, vandalize some property and, get a picture of it. That's all we need.
Yeah, vandalized property. That monument is on a main street. Okay, nobody saw that property getting vandalized. That's baloney.
Yeah,
it
with
was
cameras everywhere, probably.
Yeah, cameras and everything. All right, let's talk about Soros for a second, because I've been getting a lot of flack about that. I've been told I'm a conspiracy theorist. Everybody knows about Soros's Orange Revolution, right? Where he was trying to overthrow the Ukraine. And he failed originally. But then the Ukraine had a democratically elected president. All of a sudden, these radicals and, not Black Lives Matter, but, I don't know, Ukrainian Lives Matter, whatever, all these little bots and fake revolutionaries overthrew that president, and Soros's people were put in. Soros's Renaissance Foundation and USAID are who funded that overthrow in the Ukraine, and that's what pissed off Putin. Now, you talked about him breaking the Bank of England, and with Greece, he's been shorting Greece for a while, so he's betting against them and he's facilitating them falling. You also know that he's involved with BRICS, the BRICS Bank, and all that. He owns into Petrobras oil in Brazil. He funds every radical organization in this country, everything from Tides Foundation to the Sierra Club. And he has all his little creeps like Van Jones and Kamala Harris and Michael Kieschnick and John Podesta and half our politicians, both Democrat and Republicans, take money. John McCain took $5,000 from him. Do you think he's spending this money because he's joking? The man's a billionaire. He didn't get to be a billionaire by blowing money. You know he spent $33 million in Ferguson. Why? Just to burn it? The money? No. He spent the $33 million in Ferguson to burn Ferguson. All right? So if you think it's a conspiracy theory, and it's not just Soros, it's Bill Gates, and it's Monsanto, and it's all these big companies. It's Teresa Heinz Kerry. She's the biggest donor to the Tides Foundation. Okay? And you know about Van Jones, and you know about the Weather Underground and Acorn. Those are all supported by Obama, too. Not Obama, Soros, too. Obama was supported by Soros. All right? He's the sugar daddy of the left. And if you think that he's doing this because he's kidding, you got to think again. You got to think bigger. This man does not play. And neither do people like Steyer there, whatever his name is, the billionaire, or Obadiah, who helped him out in the Ukraine, or any of these other radical Marxists. And they are radical Marxists. They'll tell you that themselves. You don't have to hear that from me. He's not
these
kidding,
companies
folks.
Are all given the opportunity to be monopolies and duopolies for that reason. I mean, there is no pro-Constitution, patriotic billionaires out there. Not even Trump. Because you know what? You don't give money to people that are tyrants and ruthless and crooked. I don't care what kind of a businessman you are.
Right.
You know? You don't. And every company from Microsoft to Facebook to and all these billionaires, they're all given the golden key to the gate.
They're all related.
So
Zuckerberg
they can do
is
their
related
part.
to Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart is a Rothschild. You got Bill Gates. You know he's a full-blown communist, eugenist. You know, you got Gruber, who did Obamacare. He's a eugenist and an economist. They're all funded by Soros or Soros' minions. Soros doesn't take his own money. Soros takes donations from people like Teresa Heinz Kerry and Steyer and Obadiah and Gates and Maurice Strong and whoever else is a communist who has a few bucks. And he backs them all up. And he is USAID. You know, and that's the UN, too.
And who pulls Soros' strings? Henry Kissinger and David
I
Rockefeller.
No, I don't think so. I think there's people above him, too.
I do think so, and I'll prove it.
Well, I think I'm not saying that he's not part of the cabal. Don't get me wrong. Kissinger is. So is Brzezinski. But there are people above them, too. Those two are the same type of facilitator as is Soros. But they're on the action side of it. They're the ones that set up the Sandinistas and the FARC and the rebels. And all these people who think that they're revolutionaries, you know, like these Black Lives Matter people, that's not revolution. No revolution was ever held to put you under the control of a tyrannical communist government. Revolutions are held to liberate you from that. Okay, but here they are thinking that they're all these revolutionaries. They are not revolution at all. And I promised in the chat room that I was going to talk about the gays and the Black Lives Matter. They clashed in Chicago, you know. The Black Lives Matter, the gay ones, during the middle of that gay pride parade where everybody was showing their biscuits around, the Black Lives Matter gays laid across the ground and wouldn't let the parade continue. So the not Black Lives Matter gays all got mad and started saying, hey, you know, come on, get out of here. Well, even that, you can't even have a gay celebration that includes all gays. These activists want a separate rights and separate privileges because they're black. There aren't even going to be a whole bunch of black people. They keep killing each other off. They're doing their own genocide right in front of us. Detroit killed it. You know, there was 8 of them killed in a party yesterday. But, you know, it's not the white people killing them. Anyhow, the Black Lives Matter gay people, they ended up getting arrested and stuff, and they interrupted the parade. And now the black preachers Did you see what the black preachers are saying? They're talking about defiance. We're not going to marry any gays. We don't care what color they are. And just because we're black doesn't mean that we have to go along with everything that this agenda has to say. We're black, but we're not sheep. I love those guys. At least they're smart.
Yeah, well, most of the blacks in California voted against gay marriage. But you see,
That's right.
you're not supposed to know that. Fox News ain't going to tell you that. None of them is going to tell you that. Because it doesn't forward the whole plan.
Mm-hmm. And Kentucky Red Dawn's in the chat room and says you can see the devil in Soros' eyes. Yeah, he's got those red underneath his eyes, the same as Kissinger and the same as Brzezinski and the same as John McCain and stuff and old man Bush. Yeah, they're doing stem cell infusions. And that's what's giving them those red eyes. By the way, I learned that. See, I learned something new. Scott, you proud of me?
Yeah, I am.
All right, we got another problem. You know how we gave up our shuttle to our own space station, and now we have to hitch rides with the Russians who don't really like us very much? And you know how Obama has been decimating our military, and you know that he's put a lot of our ships in dry dock? Well, now the Marines are looking at deploying aboard foreign ships. That puts our military under foreign command. Now, we're already under command of the Iranians in Iraq. We're sharing a base with the Iranians, and we are only there as trainers. So we are under the command of Suleiman, the big poobah of the Iranian revolutionary god. So now we're going to go under the command of any foreign vessel he decides to hop a ride with. Listen to this story. This is from USA Today. Faced with a shortage of U.S. Navy ships, the Marine Corps is exploring a plan to deploy its forces aboard foreign vessels to ensure that they can respond quickly to global crises around Europe and Western Africa. The initiative is a stopgap way to deploy Marines aboard ships overseas until more American vessels are available, said Brigadier General Norman Cooling, Deputy Commander, U.S. Marine Corps Forces, Europe and Africa. How are we going to be able to respond quickly if the driver of the boat decides, I'm not taking you there? What is wrong with us? Why are our military under the command of Iran and the UN and whatever foreign command they want to put us under? They're not even specific on whose command we're going to be under now. You remember back in 1979, in an interview with the Harvard Crimson, John Kerry said, I am an internationalist. I would only like to see U.S. troops dispensed around the world under the command of the UN. He didn't even get that far with the UN. He's got them under command of anybody who wants them. What's going on? But you got military here on U.S. soil, okay? Like we talked about just before the break when we were talking about that prison break. Did you see all the cops? They weren't just cops. They were federal marshals. They were Homeland Security. They were county and state police. They're still there. One guy is allegedly dead. The other guy is captured. You're never going to see those guys again. You know? They're not going to have a court date. One guy allegedly has life without parole. You can't give him any more time than that. That'll just hang over his head if this is legit. I'm not believing any of it's legit. I'm
trying to think what were they trying to divert attention away from? I don't,
Well, the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
This got to be some New York thing.
No, it's a way to put all those assets in place, just like Jade Helm.
Yeah, it's possible.
They're telling us they're telling us we're supposed to have this great big this terrorist attack. They're guaranteeing us a terrorist attack. And, of course, it's Ramadan. So, they always go crazy at Ramadan and they, get all thumping their chests and death to America and great Satan and all that. But they're telling us we're expecting a terrorist attack. So that gives them even more reason to saturate us. Now, they say this is training exercise for overseas training. But the cops and the federal marshals are not going overseas. So that's a lie. We told you about Walmart and how they are fortresses. We told you about all these lies that are going on. We told you about, posse comitatus. They can't operate on American soil unless there's a war or an invasion, right?
It doesn't matter.
So they're turning.
It doesn't matter when the police look like the military. Does posse comitatus really matter?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. They're turning the military into, not the military, they're turning the local cops and state cops and stuff into military. That's a civilian military. They can operate on U.S. soil. Sorry about that.
They always have 100 ways around any law. That's a pain in the ass to their goals. They got 100 different ways they can do it. Oh, you don't like illegal immigration? Well, we'll just make them all refugees. Oh, you don't like the refugee status? We'll just ship them in and just not tell anybody about it.
Yeah, and then they do that false choice thing on you too. Oh, you don't like immigrants and you don't like Latinos because you're not all for illegal immigration. No, I'm not for illegal anything. I don't have any problem with immigrants. I actually like immigrants, but legal ones. But they never offer you that.
That's just it.
Oh, you hate immigrants.
You're even defending it right now. You gotta constantly be on the defensive because the Alinsky crap works.
Oh, it works.
Well,
it
nobody
works very
wants to
well.
be called names. Nobody wants to be called a bigot.
Yeah, well, my biggest thing is we should have learned Alinsky an awful long time ago, and we didn't, and we don't use it. We don't even know how. We won't even recognize that there is an operation going on, and it's coordinated, like that flag thing. All of a sudden, half the country is labeled racist, and it all happened on the same day, and you got major retailers, and you got all these little radicals, and you got Amazon, and you got everybody all saying, oh, yeah, that flag, that flag, that flag. You got NASCAR taking the flag off. How many of these people watch NASCAR? Tell me one radical that watches NASCAR. You're afraid to offend them? They don't even watch you. It's insane. And then we got gay people running around the streets with no clothes on. Okay, you want to tell me how love won? You want to tell me what fake fornication and naked people has to do with marriage? I know a lot of married people. They're not running around the streets like La Caja Fall, imitating sex acts naked. None of the married people I know do that. I didn't even know we could do that.
Well, it doesn't matter. They want the place to look like Sodom and Gomorrah, and they want to rub your face in it. And if you say a word, then you're a anti-gay marriage bigot. You Christian piece of crap. That's what they want to do. Got to demonize you so we can eliminate you down the road here.
Yeah.
You subhuman.
Well, they're demonizing half the country over a flag that is an actual historical fact. So what else are we going to get rid of? We're going to get rid of George Washington? We're going to get rid of Lincoln?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Lincoln had slaves, didn't he? I mean, the whole world was built on slavery, okay? You think those kings and queens and pharaohs and built their castles and the pyramids and everything else, you think they rolled up their sleeves and built those themselves?
Well,
no.
The biggest thing...
Slave labor did it.
The biggest thing to come out during that flag flap was Obama's family were slave traders. Not only did they have slaves, they sold slaves. They captured people from other villages and sold them. So here's Obama, all about the slavery, and he was a slave master. His people were slave masters. He wasn't, because he wasn't there, just like we weren't, because we weren't there. I never had a slave. Nobody I know has a slave, and there are no slaves alive. So I'm not taking the blame for something I didn't do. No, I'm not taking the blame for something I didn't do. I'm bad enough I take the blame for the stuff I did do. And I didn't know we could run around the streets naked like that.
You know, a lawyer once told me.
We couldn't before.
You know, I got arrested for something once, and I told my lawyer, I said, hey, you know, I didn't do that. He said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you did it or not. It's what we can prove. And that's basically the same, you know, it's an analogy of, well, it doesn't matter what the truth is if you never hear it, if no one ever reports it, it didn't happen. It's not true. And you know what? If we commit a crime, if nobody reports it, if nobody's punished for it, if we're not arrested for it, it's not a crime. I mean, even Nixon used that line. They said he was doing something, you know, tyrannical, and he said, I'm the president. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, no witness, no crime.
I'm doing it. Right.
You know, it's to the point now where I'm really, really so upset. A family member of mine went to the shooting range the other day, and I said, make sure you bring those shotgun shells home with you. Don't throw them out at the range. And she said, why not? I said, because if they decide to pin a crime on you, that shotgun shell was shot by your gun. You might be 200 miles away from wherever this alleged crime happened, but all they got to do is pick up one of those shells and drop it at the scene. And then ballistics will match it to your gun.
You know, a cigarette. You put a cigarette out in an ashtray, you know, in front of a grocery store or a hospital. I mean, DNA now can be used, you know, against you. I mean, plus the government takes your DNA when you're born. So they got it on file anyway.
Color Me Red is in the chat. I'm glad she's feeling better. And she brought up the subject about that plane crash in Arizona the other day, the F-16 that crashed, and it was an Iraqi pilot. What is an Iraqi pilot doing in an F-16 flying a fighter plane in U.S. airspace by himself?
Well, he
was alone in that plane
in Iraq after we, you know, left him behind for ISIS to steal. He's probably taking one for a test.
He may have been a wonderful guy, but under the circumstances and the green on blue murders and the dropping all that equipment and running, actually, I'm sure they were told to leave that for ISIS. I'm sure they didn't just voluntarily get out of their tanks and out of those vehicles and drop all those guns and walk away. I'm sure they were told to leave the stuff right there. However, you know, I mean, they didn't even drive it back to base. They just left it out in the middle of the desert for the ISIS to take. So under the circumstances and seeing that the condition, there is no Iraq anymore. Anybody who thinks there's an Iraq is a fool. It's part of the caliphate now. But, you know, under the circumstances, I don't think it's really a good idea to be having, you know, these Iraqi pilots flying solo in fighter jets in U.S. airspace. You know, he might have been legit, and if he is, I feel bad for him. But
it's
unheard of. And look at the price of the plane too.
What do you think NORAD and all this is for? A fly couldn't get in a building without them knowing about it.
Yeah, well, not only that. However, then it comes to find out that we have Russian planes that have flyover permission. They don't even have to tell us. And Saudis have flyover permission. So, I mean, yeah. I'm glad Red brought that up. Thank you very much.
Absolutely wide open for attack, you know. Just stick a sign on your forehead. Say, walk around in bad neighborhood that says shoot me on it. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They just can't wait.
You want to hear something else, too? Is there's another one of those freedom flotillas. I was watching all the people flipping out, all the radicals were flipping out, you know, free Palestine and all of that. This flotilla originated in Sweden, and it was headed to Gaza. It was intercepted by Israel. Netanyahu made a statement, and he said, I thought they were lost. I thought they should be going to Syria. There's all kinds of stuff going on up there. There's nothing going on in Gaza. I saw the people all flipping out about, free Palestine and the Israelis are bad. And so I clicked on this article. And when I brought it up, there was a photograph of the people who were aboard this boat. I got to tell you, Scott, it looked like the cast from the movie Cocoon. There's a whole bunch of upper middle-aged old guys on a boat in their, the little Sperry's, the little
Wilford Brimley.
Nikes, yeah, and they're, what do they call it? The Docker shirts and all, Docker shoes and the marina wear. It looked like the cast of the movie Cocoon. Now, it was set up by Bill Ayers and Medea Benjamin and Jody Evans and that whole crew. How come they were not on that boat? They always find suckers to do the actual stunt. Someday I just wish Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dawn and a bunch of these other radicals were on that boat. It's their gig. It's their setup. They organized it. Wade Rathke with the Acorn International. He's part of it. Medea Benjamin.
It's never how it's going to be. Those people live to be 200.
Yeah, well, here they got these saps on the boat, a bunch of old guys on the boat, and you got Medea Benjamin running around in a VJJ costume somewhere else. Get on the boat, honey. It's your gig, you do it. I just can't believe it. I cannot believe it. We got another story. The Supreme Court did rule okay in one thing with this EPA thing that they come out with today, the toxic emissions. They decided that the Obama administration didn't have the authority to make these rules. They had the authority to commission a study. They did not have the authority to implement the policy that the study recommended. And again, it comes down to what is. It says the issue comes down to what Congress meant when it ordered the EPA to study whether it was appropriate and necessary to regulate the pollutants from power plants. The directive was silent on whether that study should include the cost of regulations. That's another thing that they didn't include was the cost. But the part that bothers me is this 5-4 decision. How come it's always 1 or 2? Nothing unanimous. It says the court was not deciding whether the law required the agency to conduct a formal cost-benefit analysis in which each advantage and disadvantage is assigned a monetary value, Scalia wrote. It will be up to the agency to decide, as always, within the limits of reasonable interpretation, how to account for cost. It has taken decades to achieve the EPA's goal of regulating mercury and other hazardous air pollutants. Now, see, there's a false thing right there. Hazardous air pollutants. Some of the regulations have already gone into place, and they are to be fully implemented in 2016. So that tells you right there that they're lying. Nobody even said that these were hazardous air pollutants. They tried to say that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. All you people exhaling. Well, let me tell you something. You get rid of the carbon, you're going to get rid of plants and trees because that's what they inhale. And you're never going to get rid of carbon anyhow because you got 9 active volcanoes right now. Each of those volcanoes can spew as much carbon as all of mankind and their industrial complex since the beginning of time. So you could take out all the carbon you want, and those volcanoes are going to put it right back in the air. Plants need carbon dioxide. Without carbon dioxide, plants cannot survive.
Obviously you have not listened to Bill Nye, the communist guy.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about Bill
he
Nye.
makes the difference.
Without plants, people die because when they inhale that carbon dioxide, they exhale oxygen. So without oxygen, you're going to die.
The truth doesn't matter, and in an Orwellian society. It's the enemy, all right? Zalalinsky, 101. When arguing the truth with someone and you don't have it on your side, you demonize the opposition. You're a climate denier. You deserve to go to prison.
Oh, I hate the planet. Right. I want dirty air and dirty water, and I hate the planet because I question this, right?
You're an anti-gayite.
Yep. How come that's the only choice? How come they can't say, well, I'm a skeptic and I know a little bit about science and I know a little bit about oxygen and carbon dioxide, so I have some questions.
They're even banning them from Communist News Network. No more opposition to climate change. That's a done deal. Discussion's over. You are winning.
That's it. You hate gays.
Taking our
you
ball
hate
and going
blacks.
home.
Yep. You hate gays. You hate blacks. You hate illegals. You hate the planet.
You're a xenophobe. You're everything.
What's a xenophobe?
Let's see. Which one is that?
I think they're all a bunch of Christophobes.
I think that's what they call people that don't like gays. Because I seen a real asinine cartoon one of my Facebook friends posted, and obviously he's never picked up a Bible, but I try to let it slide. It's really hard though. I want to just crawl through the screen and strangle some of these people.
Yeah, well, I don't like gays. I don't dislike gays. I don't give a damn either way. Is there a category for that?
Apathy. You're apathetic.
Yeah, because I don't care what anybody else does. They probably shouldn't care what I do. As long as they are consenting adults, do whatever you want. As far as the process, though.
Everything they hate should be illegal and punishable by death, and everything they love should be a right and given for free by the government and have you pay for it.
And should you dare open your mouth in objection, what happens to you?
Well, then it's...
You need to be villainized?
Off to the gallows. Off with your head.
Yep, you hate gays, you hate immigrants, you hate the planet.
You're a climate denier.
Water. Oh, I'm a climate denier. I'm a climate denier. I became a climate... I was even open-minded about it.
Just like those Holocaust deniers, you see. They and I love how they use the play on words, Affordable Care Act, the Patriot Act. Anything that sounds awesome, you can bet it sucks.
Yeah.
Trans-Pacific Partnership.
And the smartphones and the smart meters. All that means is it's a homing device.
Right.
Anything that says smart on it is a homing device. It's a surveillance device.
Yeah, but everything is. Everything is. Even this dinosaur phone that I'm on is.
It's smart.
They've been tapping our phones for 40 years or more.
Yeah, well, watch when they use the word smart, because as soon as they say smart, that's it. Hey, we got to go. Say goodnight, everybody.
All righty. Good night, everybody.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today, and we hope you enjoyed our show. To everybody who's listening or called in, anybody who's in our chat rooms, I'd like to thank you very much. A very special thank you to my wonderful colleagues, Lynn, Anna, AstroTurf. I see you out there, Red. Thank you. And as always, 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 a special thank you to my cool co-host, Scott. Stay tuned to PRN Radio Network all week at 8 p.m. Eastern for our great lineup of fantastic shows. We love you, America. Moretti Underground out.